Thank you for joining us to learn about data visualization best practices. In this video, we will walk you through the 10 best practices and the pitfalls to avoid when creating dashboards.
So with that sort of background information, which many of you are like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now I have a context to how I can use that in my data visualizations. Let's look at these best practices. So the first thing we want to do, and this also goes back to our dashboard of the vehicle, is that understand the user first. You know, I'm sure when the Model T Ford was built 100 years ago, they didn't nail the dashboard in their first try. I don't even know if they had a dashboard, but things evolve over time and we learn on how the brain works and how people expect to see information. But no matter what, you are developing this for a user. So make sure that you're including the user first. This doesn't mean that you go to the internet and type in beautiful dashboard template and then just use that and then try to shoehorn your data in, because that means you're not thinking about the user, you're thinking about beauty and how it's going to look. Make sure that you're designing this in a way that you know what the user expects at the end of analyzing your data story. And here I've got a bunch of questions that you can ask yourself and you can even ask your user. So who'll be using it? What's the audience? What questions? Do I need one visualization or multiple? Does the title of the dashboard or chart give me enough, or do I need to augment it with additional information? And then what are these techniques that I can use to highlight the story, the important data points? And then is this an explanatory visualization or an exploratory visualization? So these are things that are the number one best practice by far. In most discussions we have, it's always about, oh, what chart type should I use for this? Well, yeah, that is important. It's actually the number 2 best practice, but number 1 is, what does the user actually expect to get out of that chart? So if we go to number 2, there's all kinds of information on the internet about what visualization to use for the type of data that you are trying to represent. And I go back to, what story are you trying to tell with your data? Are you trying to compare data? Are you trying to show data as a part to a whole, like out of 100%, here's the breakdown within that? You know, should I use a pie chart, a tree map, a funnel chart? Am I showing data distribution through like a scatter chart or like a bubble chart that has a bubble size as a dimension to that? Am I doing trend analysis? So maybe financial data, sales data, marketing lead data, et cetera, manufacturing output data, or I need a date time axis, and then I want to look at lines or splines and then really analyze what's going on and maybe zoom in and zoom out of that based on day or hour or minute or quarter or month. Do I want to filter that data? Am I looking at relationships of data? Do I want to just show KPIs and gauges, which are very popular and really easy to read and tell a quick story? Or am I showing data geospatially? So is there a location involved? Is it important that my marketing lead data is plotted on a map, or is it just kind of like leads per day versus store performance by county? Maybe I'm going to show that on a map, because if I show a bubble chart on a map, I can instantly get information on who's doing good and who's doing bad based on that, versus maybe a line chart or maybe a table. So think about the data, think about the questions you're trying to answer, and then look at these categories of visualizations to drive what decision making you should use to use the visualization. There is a very cool example of a much more detailed view of this. The Financial Times, if you do a Google search for Financial Times data visualization chooser or something, they have this nice graph. There's so many charts on it because Financial Times has a lot of visualizations, but it goes into even like 10x depth of this. What I'm showing you here is going to hit like 80%, like the 80-20 rule. This will cover you for 80% of what you need. Now you've understood that here's what the user wants, here's the visualization. Make sure you use proper colors in text. Most of us unless you have a visual design background or you're in a really marketing background, aren't good at picking colors. And colors make or break everything. Everything from an app you install on your mobile phone to the way that you look at a visualization. So there are rules around color. So you use a diverging color palette when a central value is shared between both ends, sequential with numeric or ordered values, and a categorical when the data is just a category. So for example, you could have, by division or by food type or something like that, that you're trying to explain sales in a bar chart. There's a tool out there called Viz Palette, and I am going to bring that up right now so you can see what it looks like. I highly recommend you just go check out Viz Palette if you're having some arguments or discussions or want to explore how colors look. This is great because it will give you different ways that this would look to people with color blindness issues. You can look at it as a chroma, a colorological, or use their color brewer algorithm. And then here what I can do is I can just start mucking around, and then whatever I do, it'll update the visualization on the right. And then I can copy this RGB, hex, or HSL values and just paste it right into my application. So, and then the other thing, if you're looking at using this for different themes, like let's say I want to do it on a black theme or a light theme, easy enough to do there. So use tools like Viz Palette. Just do a search for Viz Palette, and I have the link in the slides, and this will pretty much answer all of the color questions that you have, and it'll really put you on the right path to using a good color scheme for your visualizations. Now with Reveal, we've already done all the work for you. You don't have to think about it. But if you don't like our palette, you can actually choose different starting colors, and then the palette will change. And then in the SDK, you can apply your own color palette scheme. So you can make it look just branded, like if you work for, I don't know, 7-Eleven and your colors are like white, green, red, and something else, then that might be your palette for your charts. Probably not a good idea, but you can do that with Reveal. This is an example of a typical breakdown using colors, using a 3D chart. We won't go into that now, but if you don't pick the right color palette and you're using a visualization like this, and we see it all the time, and in fact, Casey will remember, we actually shipped Reveal early on, and we had a cut. So our palette is like 9 or 10 colors, and then we had a customer in Japan who was using like 18 data points or 18 categories, and so then the colors started to circle back, and it was like, whoa, who's going to use 18 data points in a chart? That was the first thing. Like, that's not a best practice. But anyway, it's the customer, and the customer is always right. So we updated Reveal now. I think we cover like 16 or 18 unique colors. But in the SDK, you can have as many as you want. But you can clearly see in this pie chart, very difficult to see what the difference is between the pie slices based on the color. And so just a few examples of bad practices there. The next best practice, avoid chart junk. This is something that we don't see as much anymore, but it's important to make sure that you don't think, it's going to come back en vogue. So avoid things like 3D, shading, heavy grid lines. I said whimsical font choice, background imagery. Edward Tufte is like the father of data visualization. And basically he said, above all else, show the data. So make sure you're showing the data in the best light. This is an extreme example, but if anyone has seen charts in the last 15 years, you've seen plenty of examples that look exactly like what we see on the left. So we've removed the background imagery, removed the shading, the unnecessary text underneath, and on the right-hand side, we have a clean visualization, very easy to know what we're looking at. And now you'll also say, hey, how come this isn't sorted like that other one? Well, this is a time series. So I don't want to sort a time series because then it's unordered time. So this needs to be in an ordered position because I want to see January versus May. And if I ordered it, then all of a sudden it would be like May, February, June, it would get out of whack. So be clear with your data is another one. This is a lot of signal choices within the tools that you use. So even Microsoft Excel, you can do some of this stuff. Make sure you use sorting. You know, sorting alphabetically really helps people what they're looking for if it's like product names, maybe movie titles, I don't know. Sorting ascending will help me show a story of growth. Descending, maybe declining revenue, declining sales, or comparisons of largest to smallest. Titles are critical. Be as descriptive as you can in a title. Trend lines are another feature in Reveal and in Excel and many applications where you have a series of trend line options to best tell where your data is going. So it's not always clear based on the type of trend line that you pick. And then I say value overlays. This one I maybe should have made the image a little bit bigger, but on the y-axis that goes up and down here on the left, you can see there's a green and a blue bar or a box around the data. That's a value overlay. So as I'm moving my mouse over the data, it's actually highlighting information based on that data point. So I get multiple signals all at once, even with the tooltip, to know what the data story is for what I'm looking at. Highlight what's important. Very similar to the previous best practice, but we really want to design visualizations that focus people on what's important for the story that you're trying to tell. And these, again, are all signals, all things that you can use, be it series highlighting, where, you know, in this chart in the upper left, I can actually, the series I'm looking at is brought out to the forefront with color, conditional formatting, annotations always support the story that you're trying to tell. Outlier detection, time series forecasting, so being able to look to the future for the data, but highlighting that in my visualization in a way that is telling a story. And then linear regressions are really important, and just being able to show linear regressions based on your variables is stories you tell. Now, honestly, if you're looking at, you know, sales forecasting, it's probably not as important to do linear regression. More important to do series highlighting or time series forecasting, but each of these tools are in your toolbox to help you tell the data story that you need to tell. Now, using effective interactions is also important. So you could overkill on interactions. You want to make sure they're the right interactions at the right time. So things like filtering. If I'm looking at a dashboard, I automatically should have the ability to filter by a property setting, like a category, or a date and time filter. If I'm looking at something that really does clearly need further analysis, I should be able to drill down either into data in the same visualization or maybe into another dashboard. We're actually going to show you how to do that in Reveal. Or this drill down in something like a tree map is really cool, because not only do you get like a really rich tooltip, but drilling down to do further analysis in place. And something like a tree map is great for that, for really quick analysis. 3D gets a bad rap all the time. We always hear about, you know, top practice, don't use 3D. Well, 3D has its place. So a surface area chart is where 3D belongs. A 3D bar chart with a Z-axis is not a good way to tell a revenue story. So you can see here, this is looking at temperature variations in a volcano. From top to bottom, you've got multiple axes, X, Y, and Z, and it's useful. And you need that information in a 3D space. You don't need that to show data like, you know, sales by year. And this is just the same chart shown in a different way that's actually useful and tells the right story. Excessive detail. For this guy, it's more about being smart about labels, being smart about how you present numbers, being smart about like a time series. Like, for example, if you're showing sales by quarter in a chart that's like this big, don't show every day. Show maybe every month. And then if they zoom in, it goes to the week. And then they zoom in and it goes to the day, or they're drilling down, or they're linking. So be smart about showing too much detail, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't help me tell the story. In Reveal, we have this feature called large number formatting, which would take like 12, 000, and we just say 12K, or we say 5M, 50M for millions. So use tools available to you to make this work better. Use the right scale. This is the biggest violator. If any of you watch the news tonight, you will see examples of this. And it's just like, it's you know, there's a whole thing I do about charts that lie. This is charts that lie. So here you'd see this on the news, and you're like, oh my God, the U.S. gross domestic product is in a free fall because they start the y-axis at 5.25. So what the news outlet is trying to do is make you think that we are in a free fall or the U.S. is in a free fall, when in reality, if you start the axis at 0, which is where you should start it, or use a clearly visual axis break, you can see that it's declining, but it's not in a free fall. You'll see these examples all the time. And then the final best practice, correlation does not equal causation. I mean, there's so many dumb graphics that you see on the news, and this is an extreme one. In fact, there's a website called tylervegan.com. This guy has dozens of visualizations like this, but I'm watching the news 2 nights ago and I just shook my head because they were relating something to something else and they had nothing to do with each other. So here, oil imports from Norway have nothing to do with drivers killed in collisions with railway trains, but amazingly enough, the data tracks based on the dual y-axis. So all kinds of data out there like this, it really doesn't mean anything.
Be sure to check out our other video series to learn about topics like embedded analytics and how to create a data-driven culture. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Reveal BI.